Lately, recording podcasts has been quite difficult to arrange, which is why I haven't been releasing new content as frequently. Please forgive me. But what I really want to talk about is how lately I've been sleeping so late. I'd finish work around 1 a.m., right? So I decided no more scrolling through TikTok, no more playing on my phone. I'd put it away, go straight to bed like a responsible adult. I put my phone away, lay down, closed my eyes, but for some reason I just kept tossing and turning. I couldn't fall asleep. For about the past 2 weeks, it's been like this. I'd toss and turn until 3 a.m., unable to sleep, even though I hadn't touched my phone since I got into bed at 1 a.m. You know me, I'm the kind of person who overthinks everything. I think about things I don't need to think about, things that are worth thinking about, and things that are completely unnecessary. I'm just someone who overthinks, constantly in a state of excessive contemplation. When I can't sleep, I just lie there, thinking about one thing after another. But there's something interesting I've realized. Normally, during our busy hours working or studying, we don't have enough time to reflect or pause to think deeply about an issue. In the evenings, we might scroll through TikTok or seek entertainment again without a quiet moment for proper reflection. So, it's at night, just before sleep, that all those thoughts weigh heavily. I think so much, an incredible amount. However, there's a good side to it too. Because I think so much, I come up with a lot of ideas. I work in marketing, which requires ideas and creativity. So even when I'm lying awake at night, trying to sleep and not wanting to work, my mind just keeps generating ideas. And you know what's funny? Anyone working in content creation like me will understand. Many ideas pop into your head unexpectedly. If you don't write them down, you'll never remember them later. You'll just recall, I think I once had a brilliant idea about something. Then you rummage through your mind but can't recall what that idea was. So I just lie there thinking. Whenever an idea comes, I have to groggily get up, turn on the light, and grab the notebook I keep by my bed. You see, I have to keep a notebook there for these moments. So several times a night, I'd repeat this process, unable to sleep. Even when I tell myself, just let me be, don't think about anything, and decide not to turn on the light or write down ideas, my mind still wanders. If not ideas, it's other things. Sometimes I even think about completely irrelevant stuff, like how much does my colleague's baby weigh now after their first month? I think about silly, random things. Now I realize I'm probably not alone in this. Many people likely overthink as much as I do. So, I guess I'll be the one to represent all the overthinkers. Oh my goodness, I'm an overthinker too, but now I overthink in a way that leads to solutions, with intention and control. Before, I was just a negative overthinker, truly frightening. Overthinking means when we think too much, and it's usually about negative things. It's a psychological condition that divides into two forms: ruminating, dwelling on the past, and worrying anxiety about the future. Ruminating overthinking happens when an event has already occurred in the past, and we have the outcome. We can't change it, but we still think and dwell on it. It's like, if only I had known. I wish I had. What if? Does that sound familiar? The second form is when an event is about to happen, and we think of a myriad of terrible scenarios that could occur. Like, oh, I'm too scared to do it. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if the other thing happens? Does that sound familiar? I know many people are like that, and so am I. Those who listen to this podcast episode are also likely overthinkers like me. I can pretty much read them. I'm one of them. Actually, there's a scientific explanation for this. In the book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, which I've mentioned before, it explains it like this. When we overthink, our brain is activating a self-preservation mechanism. When we think a lot, we become afraid, right? And fear is how our brain protects us from danger during the course of human evolution. Because we feared getting burned, we didn't play with fire, right? In general, it's because of such fears that we are kept safe from danger. Overthinking works on the same mechanism. When we think a lot and imagine worst-case scenarios, we become afraid, and that fear prevents us from taking action. Does this sound familiar? I'm too scared. What if? We constantly create a stack of hypotheses and ultimately decide not to do anything. Up until now, I've mostly talked about the negative aspects of overthinking. Before we delve into how detrimental overthinking can be, let's explore its positive side. People who overthink are typically very thoughtful in their actions. They are meticulous and cautious because they think a lot. And thinking a lot naturally leads to caution. Caution doesn't always guarantee correct decisions, but it certainly reduces the probability of making mistakes. Secondly, overthinkers are definitely sensitive people, and sensitive people often consider others' feelings. They care about how others feel, so they tend to avoid offending anyone. They understand how to behave appropriately. Sometimes, because they think so much for others, they even take the short end of the stick themselves. Also, overthinking, as I mentioned earlier, can be quite useful in creative fields. When we're developing a product, we don't start with brilliant ideas right away. We brainstorm a ton of rough ideas, then filter through the messy pile to select the best ones. So, when we overthink, we generate countless ideas, and among that large collection, we might find a few good ones. That's the positive side of overthinking. Now, take a deep breath. We're moving on to the negative aspects. People who overthink are usually negative. Of course, overthinking is a psychological issue, and psychological issues negatively impact our mental health. People often say, "I have a beautiful sadness." But actually, sadness can be beautiful when we savor it. Negativity, however, is not beautiful at all. It's a suffocating black void that obstructs many aspects of our lives. I've experienced it, so I understand deeply. But here's a problem. Sometimes we don't even realize we're overthinking. Normally, if you eat too much, you'll consciously think, "Wow, I've been eating a lot lately. I need to cut back." When we do anything excessively, we usually notice. But often, when we overthink, we never ask ourselves, "Why am I thinking so much?" It's as if we don't realize we're overthinking. Mental illnesses, in general, are tricky because we don't know we have them. And because we don't know, we don't seek treatment. How can you treat a disease if you're not aware you have it? It's only when it progressively worsens that we begin to notice, and by then, the process of psychological counseling or therapy becomes much more challenging. Overthinking doesn't always escalate to severe psychological trauma for everyone, but it definitely impacts one's mental state. Before we can treat any illness, we must first accept that we have a problem. If you overthink and tend to be negative, you must first accept that you are an overthinker. Labeling yourself as a negative, overthinking person can be sad. We have to accept it. We have to accept that we have this problem of overthinking. And once I accepted that I was an overthinker and sometimes a bit negative, I felt sad. I thought, why am I like this? Why do I overthink so much? Stop thinking so much. If simply saying that could solve everything, life wouldn't be this complicated, would it? So I went online and looked for solutions. I searched for ways to solve the problem. Wait, before I accepted that I was an overthinker, I also hypothesized in my head whether I was an overthinker or not. I asked my friends, and they confirmed I overthought too much. They said I thought too much, thought too big. Once I knew I was an overthinker, I could then find ways to solve my problem. Marcus Aurelius, a great philosopher, once said, "Your life is what your thoughts make it." This means if we're negative, our lives will also be negative. If we're happier and more positive, our lives will improve. Thoughts also lead to actions. When we think positively, or at least not negatively, our lives become easier to breathe. Before, I was in a relationship with a very good partner, but I was still an overthinker. I overthought so much that I wanted to end the relationship myself because I felt I was too scary. I would type out long messages, then delete them, constantly typing and deleting because I was afraid of bothering him. Especially at night, when he said he was going to sleep, but I'd see his chat icon still active, I'd immediately think, is he texting someone else? Is he hiding something? Just one message or an unusual sign would make me overthink. If he said something lighthearted, I'd start to wonder, what does this mean? Does it mean he doesn't love me anymore? Looking back now, I realize how toxic I was then. I created a toxic relationship. I have some advice. If you're in a relationship with an overthinker, never leave them alone. Overthinkers are very sensitive, and sensitive people are often afraid of bothering others. Many times, they won't dare to express all their thoughts because they fear being judged or being a nuisance. If you're in a relationship with an overthinker, never make them guess. Communicate everything clearly to them, as clearly as possible. Because if you say something unclear, they will spend all night thinking about it, and they might even cry. Create the safest environment for them possible. They are sensitive, and sensitive people often lack a sense of security. If you're in a close relationship with an overthinker, friends, colleagues, close acquaintances, they will often be sad. If you truly have good intentions and genuinely want to pull them out of that endless darkness, that dark quagmire, try to share with them more. Give them the feeling that you are accompanying them and confide in them. When an overthinker is troubled, they often seek out close people to confide in, and their stories might sometimes make the listener feel, why are they making such a big deal out of it? It's nothing. So, people often give advice like, oh, it's normal. Everyone goes through that. I used to be like that too. Everything will be okay. By constantly offering such advice, you implicitly push your friend into a position where they feel they are an overthinker, they are overreacting, they are negative. When you put them in that position, firstly, they are already sad and feeling very confused about themselves. And now they have an additional thought. I'm such a nuisance. I'm confiding in someone about such a minor issue. Then they'll think further, why am I such a problematic person? Why am I so unusual, so weird? They are already carrying their own sadness, and now you're making them ponder another issue, whether they are normal or not. I know everyone means well and doesn't intend to make them think more, but it's often because we don't know how to deal with overthinkers, right? So I read about a psychological theory called emotional containment. This means when someone confides their sadness in us, we just need to be there for them and listen. When they're sharing their sadness, we just stay by their side, allowing them to be sad, allowing them to vent and confide. Just let them know that we are with them and ready to listen to their sorrow. When someone is sad, who needs to be told, don't be sad anymore, be happy. If saying, don't be sad, be happy, worked, they would make themselves happy and wouldn't be telling you, right? No one needs that. So next time someone confides their sadness in you, don't give advice or say things that make them feel worse. I also understand that the problems in each person's life are their own personal responsibility. Others are not obligated to solve those problems or offer solutions or help them overcome them. But we are friends, aren't we? We are family or friends and possibly partners. We always want our friends, family, or partners to have a better life, right? We all deserve a better life. I keep getting sidetracked. Now, I'll go back to how we can reduce overthinking and hypersensitivity. After we've acknowledged that we have a problem that we overthink and often think negatively, now we'll look for solutions. First, I think a very common method that many people have tried is to keep yourself busier. Whenever we have free time, we can watch movies, listen to music, read books, or even scroll through TikTok. Basically, don't let your mind have a moment's rest. I don't know if others are like me, but as an overthinker, even when I'm reading a book, say on philosophy, my mind still wanders to other things. I'll read the words on the page, turn to the next page, but I'll be reading while simultaneously thinking about other issues. After a while, I'll realize, wait, I'm reading a book. Then I won't remember what I just read, so I'll have to flip back a few pages and start over. Overthinkers like me might encounter this when reading, but that's okay. Just keep reading. In a book, I don't remember the exact title, but it's about skin in the game. There's a concept called the flow state. It's explained like this. When we try to focus on doing something, we might initially get distracted. You might be reading but thinking about something else, or working but thinking about something else. That's fine. Just keep doing it, keep focusing on the task. Once you've spent enough time to get used to the work you're doing, you'll enter a state of concentration, which is the flow state. So, if you ever find yourself distracted from one task by overthinking about another, it's okay. Just keep going. The second solution is to be willing to talk things out. Talking things out here can be divided into two types of sharing. First, you can talk to someone you feel is a good listener, a friend, a partner, a family member. I, for example, share some things with my loved ones. Second, talk to yourself. Overthinkers are often people who listen to themselves a lot, creating scenarios in their heads, acting them out, and listening to their own thoughts. But now, we won't just listen to ourselves, we'll converse with ourselves. You can do this by writing a diary. As for me, when I'm too lazy to write, I'll record myself. I'll open my phone and record, talking about what happened today, what I'm thinking, and so on. In the movie Blood Moon Party, a popular film from a while ago, it said that each person has 3 lives, a public life, a private life, and a secret life. There are things we tell anyone we meet like, oh, I work at company A or B. There are things we only tell the right people. We don't tell just anyone. Those are things in our private life. And there are things we keep solely to ourselves because we fear judgment or simply because we don't want to tell anyone. Those are things belonging to our secret life. Life is made of stories, and stories always have their own way of being expressed. Even when we don't share with anyone, we have concerns and private thoughts that we bottle up, determined not to tell anyone, right? We might even not want to remember or bring up those issues to ourselves anymore. But even if we ignore them, they still exist and cause us headaches, creating an unresolved problem. I truly understand how an overthinker feels, because when we overthink, everything in our head becomes chaotic, and we don't know where to untangle it like a tangled ball of yarn. We won't know where to start unraveling, and we might even feel too tired to touch it. Just looking at it makes us discouraged. So now, when you're overthinking an issue, write it down. When we write, we can identify how many problems we have. By clearly seeing each problem we face, we can find solutions more easily. The problem with overthinkers is that they often think negatively. A friend once told me, whenever you ask a question, that question must be accompanied by a solution. It must never be a dead question. A dead question is one that merely states a problem without offering a solution. So, overthinkers should never ask such questions. For example, if you always encounter bad partners in relationships, you might think, why do only terrible people come into my life? Instead, we should ask, how can good people come into my life? When you ask, how can good people come into my life? You'll then come up with solutions. For example, be more positive, socialize with positive people. In essence, when we ask a question, we must provide solutions. These should be guiding, somewhat academic questions, so to speak. That's essentially the solution. I know many people are like me. When I overthink an issue, sometimes I decide not to do it at all. I might decide not to do it because I don't know which of two choices to pick. I get too scared, so I just don't do it. If it's one good option and one bad, we can still choose. But when all options seem similar and we don't know what to choose, write it down. There are many models we can apply to make choices. For example, the magic model, just search magic model, and you'll find a chart for reference. We list the pros and cons of each option, then evaluate the overall picture. When we write, we see the problem more clearly, and our choices become more rational. I once talked to a woman I greatly admire, and she told me something. An exercise successful people must accomplish is to overcome fear. If we try, we still have a few % chance of winning, right? But if we don't try, then we've already lost from the start, because we have 0% chance of winning. I also read something interesting in the book on Stoicism. Overthinkers often think a lot, right? Stoics divide thoughts into 3 types: thoughts about things we can control, thoughts about things we can partially control, and thoughts about things we cannot control at all. Things we can completely control are, for example, what time I wake up today, what I'll eat today. Things we can only partially control, like in a romantic relationship, we can only control our half. We can only do our best, right? If the other person doesn't do their part well, the relationship might still fall apart. That's an issue we can only partially control. Things we cannot control at all, like who our parents are. Those are things we cannot control, so don't think about them, don't agonize over them. Or things that have happened in the past, they've already occurred, so we can't control them anymore. And now for another solution, we can treat overthinking with hormones. Sounds scary like medicine, right? But in Sapiens, it says our happiness is determined by biochemical factors, which are the hormones in our body. To put it a bit broadly, overthinkers are people who lack a sense of happiness. So we'll treat overthinking by seeking happiness. As I just mentioned, Sapiens says happiness comes from hormones. And the hormones that determine our happiness, like oxytocin, I don't remember them all, you can Google them, we can produce ourselves. For example, dopamine is released when we achieve a goal, like finishing homework, or when we exercise. Oxytocin is released when we hug someone or are intimate with someone. We can find happiness from such activities. Next, a very good idea is meditation. I talked about this in the episode on happiness, episode 22 or 23, I think. You can find and listen to that episode again. I talked about it quite extensively there. I don't want to repeat it now, or this episode will be too long. So those are the ways I've tried to overcome overthinking. Even now, I'm still an overthinker. I was born an overthinker, so I can't transform myself into someone who doesn't think anymore. I still think, but whereas before I was an overthinker, now I no longer overthink in the same way. Instead, I think deeply. I choose a specific issue and delve deeply into it. And secondly, I think with intention and direction. That's what I wanted to share in this. I hope after listening to this, you'll feel better.